Hello, Olympic fans. I'm Robert Scoble, and you're watching WorkFast TV, which is about how the internet is changing work. This show is supported through the generous support of SAP, which provides software that helps both large and small businesses manage their business, lower their costs, and bring more services to their business relationship partners. Thank you to SAP for supporting social media and WorkFast TV. My guest today is Avinash Kaushik, one of the world's top authorities on analytics and author of Web Analytics, An Hour a Day. We're going to learn today about how web measurement is changing our business world. It's really hard to read the teleprompter, isn't it? So thanks for being on here.
Thank you, Robert.
You are amazing. I met you at the eMetrics conference, yes, and you had a crowd around you, so I'm really honored to have you on the show because so much of today's business is being changed by measurement.
Yes.
And backstage, you were just telling me a little story that you told about how advertising was changing. Give me just a little taste of that.
Exactly. I think that the web is one of the most unique channels today compared to TV, print, radio. And the story I was giving a group of brand marketers last week at the largest company in the world was that I took a picture with my BlackBerry of a ad for a Chevy Malibu car in Time magazine that I had, and I put it up on a slide, and I said that this ad in this magazine is completely a faith-based initiative. I learned that from President Bush, obviously. And there's very little you can measure about the effectiveness of that ad in the magazine, because the best that Time magazine will do is it will tell you how many subscribers it has. It will tell you how many possibly sales of that magazine were at retail outlets. But that's about it.
Yeah.
It's completely faith-based. Your CEO will see the ad in a magazine. He will feel happy, let's buy more. There's no other way to measure effectiveness. Now imagine that same ad on yahoo.com. or the same ad for Chevy Malibu on Time.com. Now there, on Yahoo.com, I can actually measure exactly how many people were looking for a Chevy Malibu, how many of those saw the ad, and of those, how many clicked. Now already, I have so much more information than I did for my magazine ad. Now if somebody actually clicked on the ad, then I know how many people went to the site, how many loved it, how many puked on it, how many people, if they pimped out a car, what were the customization, colors, features, did they submit a lead, did they look up a dealer? So much more accountability to your advertising dollars that are simply not available to the other mediums. And that's sort of what I find exciting about the web, is it's immeasurably accountable and very exciting. And it's not a medium that interrupts for the most part. It's when at the point of relevance, and that makes it sort of very exciting.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your background and where you came from and what you're doing today, because you're now working at Google, right?
Yes, recently.
I didn't want to bring that up at first because you wrote a book. Tell me a little bit about what you did before Google and what you're trying to do now.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've spent most of my time in what is known as decision support systems, working with marketing sales teams. And I spent about 4.5 years Silicon Graphics, then DirecTV. And the last few years, I was the director for research and analytics at Intuit. And that was the first time that I sort of started playing with the web and measurement and all possibilities of measurement on the web. During the time, I started my blog, Occam's Razor. And it was all about how do you simply turbocharge your ability to understand your customers and improve your websites driven by them and not by your hippos. I think that most websites stink because they're created by hippos, and hippos is the acronym for the highest paid person's opinion.
Yeah.
And they create websites, and that's not the way to go. So, and then 6 months after I started writing my blog, somebody from Wiley called and they said that they want to make it into a book. And I thought they were kidding because the thing's free. Why would people pay for it?
Yep.
But they convinced me, and so I wrote this book, Web Analytics, An Hour a Day. And it's been a lot of fun writing a book. Of course, you know that very well.
Yeah.
And then I left.
I wouldn't use the word fun.
Yeah. Well, it's fun after you're done.
Yes.
It's a lot of Red Bull before, but once you're done, it's a lot of fun. And then I left Intuit about 1.5 years ago, and I started doing consulting for Google because I wasn't sure, if I want to go work full time for Google or not, and things like that. So they said, just come work for us. Let's just try each other out for a year, see how it goes. And a couple months ago, I sort of started working full-time at Google. So I sort of wear 3 hats. I blog, spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
I'm the co-founder of Market Motive, which is a startup in Santa Cruz. And then I'm also the Analytics Evangelist for Google.
Very cool. At the eMetrics conference, I got a little tool there that plugs into Firefox called WASP.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
And that lets me watch what analytics tools all the websites I visit are using to measure me.
Yes, yes, yes.
And one reason I wanted to have you on was more than half the sites that I go to use Google Analytics.
Yes.
So you're clearly the tool of choice right now. You know, Google's is. Tell me a little bit about what Google's tool does and how it compares to the other ones on the market. Why is everybody using Google Analytics right now?
So yeah, WASP is a plugin created by my good friend Stefan. He's in Canada, and it's a great tool. It just detects all the JavaScript tags. So if you go to my blog, you'll see I'm using 9 tools, just because I can.
Just because you can.
But Google Analytics, actually prior to Google purchasing a company called Urchin and then rebranding it and releasing a new tool called Google Analytics, analytics was only for people who could afford, had a lot of money, and could afford expensive tools, and that tended to be a very small minority. And with Google sort of releasing Google Analytics, essentially, you know, world-class analytics was now free for everyone, and it's 100% free, no strings attached, and that meant that mom and pops and big and small companies, everybody started to use Google Analytics because they could. The other thing that I think Google did in changing the user experience is actually released a new version of analytics called version 2 that was a year ago, and that really made it sort of brain dead easy for you to look at your data, to understand what the trends and patterns in your data are, and actually find out what keywords are working, what referring sites are working, what pages are popular, and things like that. But made it such an easy process that anybody could actually understand it. So the reason Google Analytics is so popular is because it's free, it's pretty good at everything that it tries to do, and it's always evolving and giving you new features and reports. And companies big and small and large all find it to be extremely useful in doing the analysis. This week I did a search summit in Raleigh, North Carolina, and there were people from SAS there, which is, you know, one of the most awesomest company when it comes to analysis, and they are using Google Analytics to do all their analysis, and I thought that was amazing. That one of the most amazing companies is using GA.
When I interviewed Joe Kraus, who ran Excite, now works at Google, but before I interviewed him before he got bought back into Google, he said he works really hard on the keywords that he thinks people are going to use, and he tests them, and gets rid of the ones that don't work, and works on expanding the ones that do work. Give me a sense of what a company should be doing to come up with that list of keywords for their websites and how they should be testing those keywords.
Absolutely. So the simplest and easiest advice that I will give is that the keywords that people type into a search engine are not, sadly, you know, for your branding police, the terms that you want them to type into it. So I'm on the board of advisors of one of the companies, and the CEO called me a few days back and said, oh yeah, Avinash, we're ranking #1 for the term end user monitoring engine. Some combination of those words, and I said, well, that's great, we're #1 organic. Let me go in and see in AdWords how much traffic there is for the term, and almost nobody in the universe was typing the term. So what's the point of being #1 for a term nobody's using? And that's a very important paradigm shift you have to make, is that people tend to type what they want to look for, and in that sense, 2 great places for you to go and do research are use your own web analytics tool, whether you're using Google Analytics, Omniture, Web Trends, Core Metrics, whatever analytics tool you're using, it's pretty easy for you to go into your engine and go and say, you know, what are the keywords that are sending most of the traffic to my blog? Yeah, let me just show. This is the sort of the data for my own blog, and I can easily go into there and I can say, okay, what are the keywords that are driving traffic to my blog? And these are sort of the top 10 you'll see. You know, it's about survey questions, it's about web analytics tools, it's about Occam's razor. These are the keywords that are important for people on my blog. So I mine these to understand and harvest them to understand what are the keywords that I should be optimizing for. But another great research tool is this one. Let me show you. This one's for a tool called Google Insights for Search. It was just released sort of 48 hours ago. And it's an awesome tool. And
it's been talked about by all sorts of bloggers.
Oh, yes, yes.
They're all putting in keywords and trying it out.
Exactly. And Google has a lot of competitive intelligence tools like Trends for Websites, Google Trends, and Insights for Search, and the Ad Planner. And this is my favorite. So I can say, so because I was at Procter last week, I'm going to say, I want razors. What happens when people are looking for razors? And I can use whatever time period I want. But I'm just going to scroll down, and what you'll see is the terms that are related to razor that are most important to users. So it's electric razors, edge razors, and shaving razors, and brawn razors. So these are what people are actually typing in. But what is more important is stuff on the right-hand side, because what you're seeing here is the things that are hot in the razor market right now are women's razors, women electric razors, vintage razors, straight edge razors. And so it's not just important for you to know, I am Gillette and I'm going to optimize myself for razors. You know that these are the other terms people use to look for razors, but more than that, what the right-hand side, the rising searches is showing you is what are the terms that are becoming hot. Yeah. So you can get ahead of the curve well before it hits mainstream. And so these are
if you're a blogger,
yes,
you should probably be reading this site about your topic.
That's exactly
and seeing
right.
what people are talking about.
That's exactly right. Both what are related terms, but also what is becoming more important to people. And I use this all the time to get ahead of sort of the curve, because many of the terms that you're seeing on the right-hand side are not in the top 10 or 20. They're just rising a lot. And yesterday I typed in the term wine, and I was surprised to see all the rising terms, but the top search terms. But the breakout term that has the most amount of interest from users in the world is the term BevMo, which is odd, like beverages and more. The retail store is the hottest rising term, and that gets you some insight into when people look for wine. Here is the thing that they're looking for, not necessarily Chardonnay right away, which some people definitely are. Yeah. So using your own data, as well as competitive intelligence that is freely available here through Google, or another tool I really like is Compete, which is a different company. Yeah. I use these two tools to go and do research, because on the web, there is little that is not accessible. So if I really wanted to know how many users read your blog, how many visitors you have, how long they spend on your website, I can actually access the data without ever having to ask you. All this data is available on the web. and use that to your advantage. Understand what your peer group is saying and doing, because I say that competitive intelligence is important, because if you only look at your analytics, it's like you're sitting in a car and it's going 90 miles an hour because the dashboard is in front of you, but it's as if the windshield and the windows are all blacked out. Yeah. But if you scrape the paint off and start using competitive intelligence tool, you can look outside and see you're going 90 miles an hour, but you're in a race, everybody else is going 220. Yeah. Now that's great context to your performance. That's why I'm such a big fan of using tools like this.
How accurate are all these tools? Because I know when I see Alexa and Compete, there's other ones out there. I forget them all now. A lot of times the charts are totally different.
Very different, yes.
One shows that your traffic's going up, the other one shows it's going down. Well, who do you believe?
Yes. No, it's
because they're not always using actual hit metrics, right?
Yes.
Compete, for instance, is using a combination of data from various sources, and sometimes that data is more accurate or less accurate. Right?
So essentially there are three ways in which people collect competitive intelligence data. And the first one is panel-based, and this is the old school Nielsen. We'll give you a booklet and you can mark in it what TV shows you watch. So there are panels where essentially companies give you software that is monitoring software / spyware, and it installs in a computer. And once you give permission, it's permission-based. And then they can monitor everything, HTTP, HTTPS, they decrypt, they know your mother's maiden name, credit card, everything. And so you give them permission to take all the data from you and keep it on their servers and analyze you. That was the old school way of doing it. Then sort of came Alexa with the toolbar. To say, hey, install our toolbar, it's monitoring everything you're doing. And then the latest wave of analytics is based on clickstream data, which is essentially companies like Hitwise and Compete are purchasing the click data, anonymous click data, from ISPs. So in which case, you and I don't have a choice. We're browsing, we're using Comcast, AT&T, whatever. Our data is being stored by the ISP, and then they sell it off to Compete and Hitwise and other companies like that, who then mine that data. And that data tends to have a stronger signal because it is much more representative and things like that. And Google has released 3 or 4 analytics competitive intelligence tools recently, and they tend to use a mix of data sources that Google has, all anonymous. And it's starting to release this data because in the past, competitive intelligence data was also only accessible to people that had a lot of money to spend. So the starting price for most competitive intelligence tools is at least $100 grand a year. And then it goes up from there. But now with some of the tools that are coming up, Compete has a bunch of free reports. Google's tools have a bunch of free reports. It basically means the cost goes down from 100,000 to 0.
Yeah, it's fun to go in there and compete yourself to like Mike Arrington.
That's exactly right. Yes, yes.
See how lame you are.
So my advice.
Do you do that with your blog?
No, I do.
I don't have enough visitors.
No, I looked up mine yesterday. I can show you today, and I'm doing pretty okay.
Excellent.
But the interesting thing is, the reason that the numbers are different is because of each the methodology used to collect data. Yeah. So what I like to say is, you'll never get an accurate count because the monitoring system is not on your website. They're looking from the outside. So it's like somebody sitting on the moon with a telescope and pointing the telescope to a supermarket entrance to count how many people come, versus somebody standing inside the supermarket and punching the thing to know how many people come. That's the difference.
I always, you know, at PodTech and even at Microsoft, I would get these reports and they would say 1 million people showed up.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's fine. The laptop disappeared, but that's okay. And you know, they would say 1 million people showed up, but only 10 people commented on my blog, and I would always be like, "Are these real people, or are these machines? How do you know that?"
So the thing is, I'm going to flip to my blog. I actually wrote this post last week, and it's a primer on cookies. And essentially, cookies it is. It's cookies. So when you visit
not the kind you eat.
Not the kind you eat, sadly, yes. But when you come to my website, these 8 tools that I'm using, they will set a cookie on your browser. They set 2 cookies. One is a temporary cookie that measures how long you're here, what pages you see. Another cookie is a persistent cookie. And both of these are 100% anonymous. There's absolutely no PII, personally identified information there. But the cookie sits in your browser. It can only be read by my blog, no one else, because it's a first-party cookie. And then next time you come back again, the system reads the same cookie and says, oh, it's the same browser. Browser as in Firefox and IE, not the person. So when people say unique visitors, they essentially mean browsers. But that's the best way we can, short of using spyware. That's the best methodology we have to understand the closest thing to a person on our website. But the nice thing is that it gives you a good understanding of literally how many unique kinds of browsers come to your website. But more than that, you know, the absolute number is not important. So last month, my blog had 60,000 unique visitors. Now that 60,000 unique visitors is not important. What I do is track the trend over time. So in that sense, if some people don't accept cookies, and about 2 to 5% of the traffic does not accept cookies, and that's okay. You know, you're comparing rotten apples to rotten apples, and that's still okay because the trends and the delta between the trends is very useful. And that's the thing that I tell people about web analytics, is that data is not perfect. It's imperfect data. But remember what I said at the start of the call, which is, you know, faith-based initiative, absolutely no data, versus data that is 80 to 90% good. And there's so much more richness to it. Now, the reason you're not getting more comments is very different. Depends on the style of the person, how warm and embracing you are of your audience. So there are a whole set of other things that cause engagement. So an average post I write is read about, you know, 5,000 to 6,000 people. But I get about 30 comments on average on every single post I write.
What are you guys doing?
Everybody write to me. But it's different. Most people don't like commenting on blogs. Actually, for every comment on my blog, I get 3 emails. Because I respond to emails a lot, so people feel comfortable just commenting to me. And so if I got 30 comments, I actually got 100 emails to reply to, and that's a different way of engaging your traffic. So don't worry about the fact that more people don't engage with you. Be warm, try to respond, and the comments will go up.
You just spoke to a major company. What are the challenges for somebody like that? Not in the web, but you know, but somebody like a Procter & Gamble or a Chevron or whatnot. What kinds of things are they trying to do with their business, and what are the trends that you're seeing happen right now? The challenges that you see happen?
Absolutely. The thing that was interesting to me about going to big companies, you know, Macy's and Walmart, and Lenovo and Procter and Chevron, all these companies, many of these that I visit, there is a magnificent cultural challenge with big companies. I find constantly that a lot of people in the company still don't get the web. Now, it seems very odd for me to sit with Robert Scoble, the magnificent blogger, and say, people don't get the web. But it really is true, especially in large corporate companies. A lot of people don't understand how to really monetize the web. So Procter is a great example of a company that is godlike when it comes to offline marketing. They are brilliant brands, advertising, TV, radio, print. God, really? And their Harvard Business Review cases are written about them. And yet if you go to their websites, you'll find that they're actually fairly suboptimal experiences. Look at the Gillette site. I mean, it's not a very good site. Now, some pockets in these companies, I find that there are people who truly get it. So the Tide website is wonderful, engaging, warm. They have a forum. They engage with users. The first topic in the user forum for Tide I saw last week was people who hate Tide. And it was there. It was on the corporate side. So they get it, that adds to their credibility. But in most companies, senior management is a challenge. Culture is a challenge.
Well, I've talked to a lot of big companies, too, and most people don't use keyword, don't understand how people are going to find you. And same thing with small or big companies. A lot of people, if you visit their website, their title tag is just really lame. It's like Joe's Garage. Well, people aren't searching for Joe's Garage. They're searching for Auto Mechanic Palo Alto or something like that, right? So, and if you don't understand how people are searching for you, you're never going to build your website to serve that, right?
Exactly. And when I sort of talk to these large companies, the thing that I try to do is paint the opportunity. It's like, what a magnificent opportunity the web presents for you to make more money, create happy and more satisfied customers, and actually create long-term strategic success for the company. So I'll start with a quick story that says, wouldn't you like to figure out how many pages you have on your website where people puke and leave right away? And they're like,
they get mad at you.
Yeah, they essentially, I tell them about this metric called bounce rate, and what it measures is this phenomenon from a customer perspective. It measures, I came, I puked, I left. Literally, that's the way the metric is computed, is the number of people who come to your website and do not even give you one click, not one pathetic click. And you know what? You go into Google Analytics, Index Tools, whatever tool you're using, you look at the top landing pages, you look at the bounce rate, immediately within less than 10 seconds, you know your web pages that are letting your business down. This is an easy way to fix things.
Or like our book, Naked Conversations, we had to remove our Google ads from Naked Conversations because it was bringing a lot of porn. People were searching for naked people. And they were puking because they were looking for something. They came to our book blog and said, what's this corporate book blog about? And they would leave, right?
Exactly. And it's you were using data, right? No faith-based, like, oh, Google works, I'm going to use it. No, you use data to figure out if it works or not. And then maybe you put some negative keywords and things like that. But the other thing, Robert, I tried to use to get especially traditional brand marketers and traditional salespeople excited about the web is to talk to them about the power of testing and experimentation. And that they really get. It takes 6.5 minutes using the free Google Website Optimizer tool, 6.5 minutes for you to start an A/B test. That's it. So if you have 2 ideas that you want to try, 2 ads you want to try in Fortune magazine, it will take you 3.5, 4 months to figure out which one works better. On the web, you can figure out in 4 days. So you create the 2 pages, put them on the website. People come to the website. You can measure bounce rate, revenue, conversion rate, engagement, anything. And in 2-3 days later, you know exactly which creative content, promotion, or pricing works.
If you go to the computer science program at Stanford, they're teaching how to build software this way.
That's exactly right.
Because Google does this, right? Yes. That's why we see a weird version of Google show up for 1 second and it's gone.
That's exactly right.
Because you're testing a new design or something like that.
So I think that Marissa Mayer, who's a VP at Google, I think she mentioned at a conference a few weeks back that at any given time around the world, Google's running 40 experiments. Now think about this, like a company that might think that, oh, I get it, I know everything about what to do search, is constantly every single day running 40 experiments in order to interact with the users and get them to tell the company how to keep evolving. And the magnificent thing about testing experimentation is A, you can do it for free with tools like the Optimizer. B, you can get your customers involved in helping you evolve to the next level. So a lot of people say, I have a website, I think it sucks, so I am going to burn it up and start again with a brand new design. That's a revolution. On the web, revolutions always fails. Even if you live in Kansas, evolution works on the web.
Yeah.
And that's the thing to understand. So there's a great deal of power.
Iteration.
Constant iteration. You're just never stop. You constantly iterate. Even if you do small iterations, you will be able to understand from your customers what works. So I'll give you a contrary example of this. So I was working at one of the companies, and they wanted to know, they sell 4 products, $20, $40, $60, $80. And they were wondering what would they happen in the face of strong competition if the cheapest product they started giving away for free. Now, this is like direct money going out of the bottom line, right? And what they did is they said, well, it's very risky and long-term to do this test in a store, in retail stores like Office Max, Costco, Staples. What they did is they put up a page where they sent 5% of the site traffic where the cheapest product was listed for free. They sent 95% of the traffic to pages that had the full prices, so low risk to the business. And what they found through this experiment is when they have the free product in the lineup, it increases sales of the other 3 more expensive products. And then an amazing insight you can get by using the power of data and experimentation and testing, but involving your customers. And it took like 8 days to learn this. If you did this test in a retail store, it would take you 4 months to figure this out. And that's the power of the web, its ability to simply turbocharge your ability to do marketing, learn about your customers, figure out their preferences, and reach this nirvana of make more money, create happier customers. Usually these two don't go together.
Yeah. We have about 4 minutes.
Yes.
Give me 3 things that people do, or companies do wrong, or people do wrong, and what they should do about them, real fast.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I would say is that use an analytics tool. About 30% of the Fortune 500 doesn't use an analytics tool. First mistake, use an analytics tool.
Yeah,
if you have no data,
things that don't get measured don't get improved.
This is exactly right. The second thing I would say is people ignore the power of surveys and usability on the web. It's the quantitative data tells you what is happening. The qualitative data tells you why it is happening. So there is a free survey that I had created with a company called iPerceptions in Canada. It asks 3 questions, and it immediately tells you which things on your website are terrible from your customer perspective, so you can involve them in fixing things, not what Robert Scoble might think are good or bad on the website. That's number 2. Use the power of qualitative data through surveys and usability. And the third thing I would say is that hire great analysts. I have a rule in my book I call the 10-90 rule. And this is a classic mistake that every company makes, and that is that if I have money to spend, I'm going to buy the best and biggest and baddest tools in the world, and that's everything. But the reality is, on the web, if you have $100 to spend $10 on the tool, $90 on the people, because at the end of the day, people make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I would say.
And coming up with interesting keywords. Joe Kraus said it. You know, we think every morning we come up and we come up with more keywords.
Yes.
And test them out, right?
That's exactly right. And the thing is, use many different tools to get access to keywords, and experiment. Experiment with keywords, experiment with ads, and that's really a great, in your data, keywords is a great way to understand customer intent. And I recently was consulting for a company, and they only sell 6 products. They actually bid on 1.7 million keywords, because they followed Joe's advice to harvest the entire ecosystem to figure out what are the relevant keywords, long-tail keywords that only 2 or 3 people might be typing, but how can we show up for them and capture them for our website?
Interesting. What are some things that people can do on their blog or in their template? What are some of the things you're doing, for instance, on your blog to study and to iterate and come up with new ideas and maybe come up with new blog ideas?
Absolutely. So actually, my comments are a great way for me to understand. People keep telling me what I should write about. But in terms of measurement, the thing that I do is I always use a tool like Google Analytics, or Yahoo also has actually a free tool called Yahoo Index Tools. So use any tool you like. Tool is good. And the other one is that there is a good plugin for WordPress called Blog Metrics, and it was developed on a series of new metrics that I've created to measure success of a blog, and it was built by my good friend Joost, who lives in Holland. Get that plugin for WordPress. It will immediately help you measure conversation rate, not conversion, conversation rate on your blog, and that's a great way for you to measure success for yourself. And my other tip for blogging is that there are no rules for blogging. Like, I am the anti-blogger. I write only once a week. On average, my posts have 2,500 words in a post, and I write about math and statistics. And I have 11,500 feed subscribers and 60,000 unique visitors a month. So if you do something that is unique and of value, people will come find you. Oh, do SEO. Every time I create a title for my blog post, I go do quick intelligence and on Google's tool tools to figure out what are the key terms people are using to search for the topic I'm writing about, and I will use that in the title tag. So quick little tip for your readers.
That's right. So this has been a pleasure. It's gone so fast. You're sticking around for the after show party, and
Absolutely.
we're going to take questions from our viewers at kite.tv. So next week's guest is Pankaj Malviya. Pankaj has 15 years experience in enterprise software product design, development, and implementation of business-critical customer and service solutions for Fortune 500 companies. He's the CEO of LongJump, and we're going to have a lot of fun. WorkFast next week will not be live since we're going to be out of town, so we're going to have a taped version of that coming up. Please check in on Friday, August 15th for our pre-recorded interview. That's next Friday. Please join us also for the after show party at kite.tv/Scobalizer. Now get back to work.